begin our class this morning, and today we're going to be in lesson 2 of Sins of the Tongue. Workbook that we have here. It's called Lying, Bear False Witness, and False Swearing. If you would, turn to Proverbs chapter 26 and verse 28. Proverbs chapter 26 and verse 28.
A lying tongue hates those who are crushed by it, and a flattering mouth hopes ruin.
All right, so here we see a lying tongue. Now let's turn to also Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29. Ephesians chapter 24 and verse Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29.
Ephesians 4:29 says, "Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers."
All right, the main point from here is corrupt speech. I'm just trying to hit some verses that will be going along with what we're going to be talking about here. All right, let's go to Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 31. Ephesians 4 and verse 31.
Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice.
All right.
What's clamor? Anybody know?
Say that again. I can
What does the word clamor mean?
clamor. My version didn't say that, so I can look that up. Anybody know?
Isn't it rambling on with really no meaning?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You better know what the word means before you say it.
I haven't got this good.
Okay, all right. The last one is going to be 1 Timothy 5:13. 1 Timothy 5 and verse 13. What?
Like an uproar?
What?
Uproar?
Uproar?
Noise and uproar?
1 Timothy 5:13. Says, and at the same time, they also learn to be idle as they go around from house to house, and not merely idle, but also gossips and busybodies, talking about things not proper to mention. So here we've hit in Proverbs chapter 26, verse 28. You see lying. Then Ephesians 4:29, corrupt speech. You see back at Ephesians 4:31. The book uses the word backbiting. What's backbiting? Anybody know?
Saying something behind people's back.
Yeah, backbiting. Okay, you stab somebody in the back, and there's another way to put it. You know. And then we also see gossip. You know, if you look around, even in certain churches, in the world, in schools, work, you see a lot of people using all of what we just said: lying, corrupt speech, evil speaking, backbiting. No, you definitely, especially in the workforce and school, you hear a lot of gossip. But do we actually take in mind of how much does that hurt other people? How much it dims down our light? How much God tells us we need to be honest, we need to be trustworthy. But, we need to be set apart. But do we say anything against them? How many times do we hear a little white lie is not going to hurt anybody? Or we tell a lie just to try to make things better, to calm things over, but we never really take the time to think about, is that actually right?
Is telling the truth possible?
Telling the truth, I would think it depends on what situation you're really in. Are you telling the truth straight to somebody's face, or are you telling the truth that's to spread the word around that you know it's gonna harm someone?
What was the, go back to what was the purpose, right, of
Yeah,
sound speech, is to edify one another.
Yeah.
If you know a truth about somebody and you go and tell it to everybody, how are you edifying everybody? So that would be gossip, so.
I was gonna say, right along the same thing.
Yeah.
You can know something, it doesn't mean it's everyone else's business.
exactly.
So it doesn't mean you should be going and telling everyone else, because that is what gossip is.
Yeah, see, that's why I say it depends on the situation, you know, are you telling it to somebody, you know, to that person, you know, we have a conversation with that person, or are you actually going around trying to hurt somebody?
Or just to go to that person in the initial process.
Yeah.
To go to that person.
Mhm.
Right.
Let's go to Revelations 21, verse 8. Revelations 21, verse 8. Dad, you want to read that?
Revelation 21:8, but the cowardly, unbelieving, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death.
So, what's the outcome for life? Somebody can-
Eternal fire, I mean, if you want to describe it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
eternal fire, eternal pain. Yeah. Do we often think about that when we look at our speech, when we're actually participating in lying? As small as it could be to us in our mind, do we actually think the eternal outcome of being somebody who practices lying?
The James spoke about it being the tongue being so hard to control.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's something that you definitely have to watch.
We sometimes we don't catch ourselves, you know. I know growing up, you know, there's a lot of times where you're with your buddies, you're trying to protect one of your buddies, and so you got your back. If you don't have my back, then are we truly friends? You know, are you gonna save me? Are you gonna allow me to get in trouble? So what do you end up doing? You either lie for him, you gossip for him, you know, you be a false witness for him. We're gonna get to that, being a false witness. You know, our speech is something that's very powerful, but we take that for granted a lot of times.
If you ever had a chance where you said something and then a couple minutes after it, you said, why did I say that?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, you know.
Yeah, you kind of, I've had those moments where, just like you said, you know, you say something, you don't really see the pain that it's gonna cost somebody else. Even, especially when you take this situation of lying, maybe you are protecting your friend, but you're not taking in consideration the person that's actually gonna be facing the consequences for what your buddy did or for what you did to try to cover their back and lying.
So Larry's point, I mean, I think everyone has probably put their foot in their mouth in one point or another.
Mhm.
But the key is how did you respond to it? You know,
Yeah.
what did you do when you realized that you did it? Because none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
No one's ever always going to say the right thing or not say the wrong thing. And when you do, you realize you say something that's wrong. What did you do to fix it?
Okay.
Don't you think though that situation is different than intentionally lying?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Not
Lying sometimes is a way people control others, or they control the situation. And if you're a liar and you lie a lot, you're never going to remember the lies you tell. and that's just gonna make a real problem. But if you always tell the truth, or say nothing, or but tell the truth, you'll remember the truth. And, some of the kids I've always said, tell me the truth. I can deal with the truth. I can help fix the truth. But once you start lying to me, then I'm not gonna believe you because I don't know what's true.
Exactly. And that's the biggest thing is if you build up that reputation of somebody who practices lying a lot, no one's going to really have any kind of trust in you. Because they don't know, are you trying to cover up for yourself or somebody else? Or are you actually telling me the truth? And especially as Christians and as people in this world, we need to be trustworthy. We need to be somebody that people know that I can rely on to help me with my problem.
Sometimes, words that hurt people, are not necessarily lies.
Oh, yeah.
You're just a newly married young man. Words of wisdom can be said. Watch what you say to people that you know and love. Because you just can't say anything and everything that pops off your head, even the ones that you truly love, because it hurts, And sometimes it's hard.
Another harmful thing about lying is you look in the world and you look at the media, politicians, corporations, whatever. If they tell a lie often enough, long enough, people start believing it.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll become truth to them.
Well,
That's very dangerous.
to go on with what you said, I was probably my best buddy from high school. I was sitting down having dinner with him. And the guy we went to school with was his half brother, or actually step brother. And he was a pathological liar. He really got into it. And it got to the point where he started believing his own lies. It started really I never thought I could ever see it happen. It started to mess with his mind. That he was living his lies all the time. And in his head, what he was telling everybody was true. And you could barely tell the difference if you didn't look closely. So a liar is a person who tells lies. Charitably speaking, it is appropriate to make a distinction between innocently passing on misinformation and actually lying. While one should be careful to check on the authenticity of the information he shares with others, it should be noted that a lie is both something that is not true and which is said with the intent to deceive. Possessing and sharing misinformation may primarily reflect a lack of understanding, whereas the act of making a statement which a person knows to be false become a character issue. Question would be, is telling a half-truth and leaving out information, do you consider that lying?
Yes,
Why?
because it's a half truth.
Half-truth.
You didn't tell the whole truth, right? So help me God.
A lot of people will say that they'll tell the majority of the truth, but maybe leave out one word or one part of the information, and they don't consider that lying. Do we often think about that when we're looking at lying?
Well, when you're trying to ask somebody a question and find out information from them, and they don't give you all the information, and they leave out a few things, that can turn around and bite you later on. When you're trying to get that information or just trying to tell the truth about something.
Now, I don't think we have any lawyers in the room, but once you're sitting on the court, man, you take a witness and he comes up and he tells what maybe partially what you need to know, and you're trying to help out somebody else. And that one key information he left out in his story, it changes the whole outcome for everybody, right?
Well, that's why by admission.
Yeah.
Among the technical term for it.
I don't want to beat the bush, you know, I think
Hey, Justin?
Yeah.
I think there's also situations where, and they, just like you heard it said, doesn't need to know. Okay?
Yeah.
So just because Todd comes up and asks me something, it may not be any of Todd's business, you know? So when I reply to him and I don't give him all the information, that's not me actually lying, you know? There are things that Todd doesn't need to ask me about, you know? Now, if he has a concern because of something, that's obviously one thing, but, you know, we talk about gossiping, we talk about, backbiting and things like that.
Yes.
You know, you could be asking someone questions someone could be asking you questions specifically for those reasons.
Yes.
You know, so, yes, when we intentionally lie, we leave things out, that's like, in general terms, when we're having conversations with people, when we're doing something to be deceitful.
Yes.
There is an expectation of privacy that
Yes.
you know,
Well,
we're not sure everybody knows the answers.
Yeah, and I agree with Kyle, but not only that, sometimes people get emotional, right? And when they're emotional, they only focus on the things that they believe to be true, and they don't give you the entire account of something. So that's not intentional lying either. So, I mean, there is a fine line. I mean, I think the way to determine that, if there is an intent to lie, it is a deceitful cover-up of not giving you all the information.
Yeah, that's where I was going to say, I was like, well, to go along with what he said, that is a lie of something that is not true in which is said with the intent to deceive.
If the part they're leaving out in the conversation is crucial, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Then yeah, that's lying. You're not
Yeah.
telling the truth about the
Right.
situation.
Like, you have to do it with the intent to deceive.
Right.
You know, you're withholding information for that specific purpose. Not just, you know, if you have things that are private that you don't want people to know, then that's a completely different situation. That's your personal life. That's something that stays between you and the people that you want to know. But the moment that you're trying to lead them astray, lead them down a wrong direction with your words, is the moment that's when you need to be worried about looking back at what you're really doing.
Also, the qualifies this. Bible talks about the father of lies. That would be Satan.
Yes.
You're thinking after the way Satan.
And that I was gonna go to the next point. It says Satan, when with reference to for the forbidden fruit, he tempted Eve to eat thereof, saying, "You will not surely die." In Genesis chapter 3, verse 4. Being deceived by the devil's lie, Eve ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and she also gave it to her husband with her, and he ate. This resulted in the fall of man and the subsequent evils in the views of what happened when he first recorded lie was told, believed, and acted upon. Here's a question. Can any sane person say that lying is harmful?
Like, what?
Can any sane person say that lying is harmless?
Usually one lie leads to another.
Yep.
No, how about white lie?
What?
How about white lie?
White
There
lie?
is no such thing.
A lie is a lie. You know, doesn't matter how big or how small, a lie is a lie.
Well, that's what we hear.
Oh yeah, just a little white lie won't hurt anyone. You know, it's false. Yeah. Yeah. Look at Adam and Eve's situation. Eve passed that information on to Adam. Eve fell into sin, and look at the consequences of that.
Well, I mean, he ate too, right? She
Yes.
gave it to him,
Yes.
but, you know, I look at what resulted out of that too.
Mhm.
That they were hiding shame.
Yeah.
You know, realizing that, so, I mean, again, it's just too many times we justify wrongdoing.
Mhm.
in so many ways that we could probably sit here forever, discuss that, right?
Yeah.
You know, and the bottom line, we just gotta hold true to God's word.
Well, as far as Adam and Eve, Satan was the one that lied to them. And
Yes.
because Adam knew that there was the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Yes.
So, I mean, they were both aware of it, so it was Satan that lied to them.
Yeah, well, that's what that's
Yeah.
where it all started. The root of the lie started to deceive and look at the consequences for it.
It's like a water skipping, it's like a rock skipping across the water. Just add, just ripples down.
Oh, yeah.
I think one thing we all have to remember, especially as we're raising our kids and stuff, and then in life, that actions, whether lying or other sin, actions have consequences. Even if you're sorry afterward, you have to deal with the consequences that come. And, you just have to remember that actions have consequences.
You know, Amos said, their lies lead them astray, lies which fathers follow. You know, and then you go into the book of Nahum, portrays the judgment from God upon the ancient city of Nineveh, and describes that the city as a full of lies and robbery. A young prophet cried out, Jeroboam's unauthorized altar in Bethel lost his life because he believed and followed the lies spoken to him by the old prophets. Contributing to the fall of Judah was the fact that people like their vow had bent their tongues for lies. Jeremiah 9, verse 3. Even the prophets prophesied lies in God's name, declaring that the deceit of their hearts, Jeremiah 14, verse 14. Thereby causing God's people to err by their lies and by their recklessness. God struck Ananias and Sapphira dead when they lied about their contribution to the church in Acts chapter 5, 1 through 10. So you can see throughout the Old Testament and that one in the New Testament that, you know, lies do have their consequences. All of our actions have consequences. And it starts in the very beginning. Any other comments, questions? All right, so what is bear false witness? What is bearing false witness?
I think, back up on the line, I think that some of the key points, it doesn't have to just be verbal, right? That he had. I mean, you see that today, people lying on, and he has a good point, income taxes, misrepresentation of things that they're trying to sell, and different things like that, cheating, and also, making excuses that they know to be false, right? So,
It can also be an action.
yeah.
Any other comments? All right, so what is bearing false witness? What is bearing false witness?
Lying about yourself.
Yes. So it's kind of what it's saying. You're being a false witness of something or someone. Some kind of action. It says bearing false witness is intimately connected with lying. False denotes that which is not true, and a witness is a person who saw something happen or a person take an oath to court, in court to tell the truth, or a person or thing that furnishes evidence or proof of the thing or facts mentioned. So what? I'm trying to say one of this.
It's in one of the 10 Commandments.
Yes. Yeah, it was one of the 10 Commandments. We should not bear false witness. Let's see, what's the importance, I guess, is a decent way to say it.
If you were in a trial where Jesus was in, and that,
What about the trial of Jesus?
well, the religious leaders bore false witness against him.
Yeah, and which led to his crucifixion. They had their intent and their purpose and their mind of what they wanted to happen, and that was his crucifixion. And so it didn't matter how they got it, they wanted that motive.
Well, people are putting in prison falsely because of people coming up and lying. It must be the truth.
Yeah, you look at the long-term actions of bearing false witness. You don't know who you're hurting, how many people you're hurting. You know, you just have your purpose, what you want, and you want to try to cover up somebody or you or some, something that will lead you into being convicted at that point as well. There is a very big long-term effect of that.
I almost hate to even mention it, but politics.
Yeah.
Politics, things happen in politics today.
Well, look what it has done to our country about all the lies that are out there that people start. I mean, it caused turmoil in our country, divides people. It gets pretty nasty out there when you hear some of this stuff. It gets pretty, and they want all the lies out there because that way you don't know what the truth is, so you don't have to believe.
Let's go to
If
Proverbs.
you happen, excuse me,
Sorry.
if you happen to be in court and you're giving testimony, if you're giving false, isn't that perjury or something? And you can go to jail for that.
Or if you
Look at
lie
Bill
to an
Clinton.
officer,
The what?
you lie to an officer, police
There you
officer.
go.
false witness.
Yeah, for example, what you're saying, for example, the Senate voted to impeach former President Bill Clinton not for sexual infidelity, but for lying under oath or false swearing. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 6 and verse 16 and 19. Proverbs chapter 6, 16 through 19. There are 6 things which the Lord hates. Yes, 7 which are an abomination to him: haty eyes, a lying tongue, and the hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wickedness, wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil, a false witness who utters lies, and one who spreads strife among brothers. Naboth was stoned to death because people believed the testimony of 2 scoundrels from Jezebel employed to testify against him, saying that he had blasphemed God and the king. Jeremiah suffered much because of those who resolved to attack him with the tongue. Let's go to Acts chapter 6 and verse 13. Acts chapter 6 and verse 13.
They also set up false witnesses who said, "This man does not cease to speak blasphemous words against this holy place and the law."
All right. So Stephen was stoned to death in part because of the testimony of false witness who accused him of speaking blasphemous words against the holy place and the law. And this is what we're seeing here in Acts chapter 13, that they put forward false witnesses who said that this man incessantly speaks against the Holy Spirit and the law. For we have heard him say that this Nazarene Jesus will destroy this place and alter the customs which Moses handed down to us. And fixing their gaze on him, all who were sitting in the council saw his face like the face of an angel.
It just said, in verse 11, 6, it said they heard, verse 10, they were not able to resist the wisdom of the Spirit without its explaining. So, basically, just tell the truth was spoken. And they resorted to, bearing false witness. And we see it time and time again, right? Naboth is a prime example of that with, you know, Jezebel,
Mhm.
and then the Bell's people, you know, getting that hurt. She got them to stir false witness against Naboth. And then you have, you know, time and time again, Paul dealing with this, people falsely accusing him. I mean, just right on down the line, because it just goes to show that people cannot take and fight against God's truth. you know.
Mhm.
So if you stick to the truth, you win.
Good point.
What did the Pharisees do to Jesus? They couldn't find a way to accuse him, so they stirred up false witnesses. That's what we see in Matthew 26, right?
Yeah. And that was going along with what Grandpa was saying with Jesus' crucifixion. You know, how far are you going to go to either get what you want or to protect you or somebody that you love or even somebody, you know, that's important. You know, something, some action. You know,
Well, that's been Satan's way ever since the beginning. He always, you know, there was the truth, God's will or word, but the way of combating truth is lie.
Mhm.
That's the biggest weapon that anybody has, and even Satan uses. You know, it's lie. It's only something that's not true. And unfortunately, people will follow that.
So, I don't want to, that's not a good question. Has anybody witnessed, that's what I want to put in, anybody witnessed any kind of very false witness in their life? It was better than what the book was trying to say, how many of us have offered false testimony. Well, has anybody witnessed any kind of false testimony?
Sure.
That
A lot
led
of
to
times-
very,
A lot of times, people try to justify it, if they're trying to help someone out
Mhm.
in doing it, and that's where the phrase "the cover-up's worse than the crime."
Mhm.
You know, a lot of times, if you start out by lying about something, and then you have to keep going down that path.
Mhm.
In the example of committing a crime, and then you lie about it,
yes.
and then you have to lie about other things to keep proving your first lie in the first place. So, but I always say the cover-up's worse than the crime. If you would have just dealt with what the situation was, the majority of the time, things will work themselves out. But when you start down a path of trying to cover up and conceal something that was already done, it just amplifies the
Yeah,
situation.
you gotta keep on building upon that lie, you know, they just keep on going and going and going. Until eventually it either unfolds, and it's seen, or it just gets buried.
One thing I think you gotta realize too, what is the definition of a witness, right? That somebody who's actually seen or experienced what's happening. In other words, a false witness can be somebody who is saying something that's not validated from somebody else, and you continue to say it. You're a false witness at that point, because you weren't the one that actually saw, so you have no business even bringing that testimony to light.
What does the Bible say? Bring 2 to 3
That's right.
witnesses, give an account.
You don't just wanna take one person's word for it.
No, I mean, because this has happened, right, where somebody says something, that they witness something, and then others have jumped on board saying that we witnessed this too, right, because you're saying that you're a witness when in fact you're not, it's a false witness.
Yes.
Right, so, and many have been harmed in the church when that type has happened, right? So we need to understand that as well. That you have a responsibility, if you're going to be a witness to something, to make sure you actually are a witness of something, and what's being said is factual.
You don't wanna get caught up in somebody else's problem. As well, there.
Is that the same thing as people, to be an apostle, you have to see Jesus. But we have people nowadays that say they're apostles, but that would be a false witness because they didn't see Jesus.
that's a good point.
You know, the other thing, and I don't know if you're going to that, is and Diane used to get on me a lot for this too, because I'd always say, you always do this, right? Where she doesn't always do that, right? But that's sometimes how we tell one another when we're looking at that, and that's really not true, right? That's implying something that's not true. Right?
Yeah.
So,
That is very, I didn't really think about that either.
You think about how many lies has been spread or has gone because you trusted someone, and they said something about someone or whatever, and you, so-and-so said, I trust what he says, but usually if you take and you tell, we used to do this in class, I'm sure everybody's done it, it's more of an analogy, but if you tell something to someone and whisper in their ear, and you have like 6 or 8 people, they got a line going down, by the time he gets down to the end, it may not even be the same thing that you said. And that's the way lies are, that are told, that have no basis. They get bigger, and they sometimes they get changed in a while.
But what if you don't remember something correctly because your mind is, not perfect, and you give an account of something that happened a long time ago, and you remember it incorrectly? Is that really lying, or is that innocently wrong?
no, that's not there's no intent there. You're
Yeah.
trying to remember, you're given what.
Yeah.
Right, and that's my
I
point.
would probably say in that situation, if you're trying to tell somebody with authority and the information, tell what you know, but don't try to elaborate on any more than that.
And watch what you say,
Yeah.
it's said.
Yes.
If you're planning on being deceitful, which you covered
Yes.
multiple times, then you are lying.
Yes.
If you did not plan on being deceitful, if you got the wrong information, you
Yeah.
remember something incorrectly, then that's just a mistake. It's an accident.
Yeah.
I think what we're talking about, 2 different things.
Yeah. I'm just saying, just say what you know, but don't go farther than that. So say what you do remember.
Yeah, I was just giving a different aspect
Yeah.
of what you were saying.
But I get what you're saying. With both these, lying and bearing false witness, a big thing is we need to watch with hypocrisy. In short, do we condemn the act of being a false witness while sometimes practicing the sin? Same thing goes with lying. You don't want to get caught up in that situation more than what people already try to say about the church as being hypocrites. It's something even with this, it's just with our tongues. Either lying, bear false witness, or false swearing, or cursing and different things like that. Watch with the hypocrisy. Because sometimes we can get caught up in it and we don't even realize it. We don't even see it. Especially with something like our speech.
So if you're being a hypocrite, then you're you're lying about the importance of it. Saying you need to do this, or this is important to do, but I don't actually do it.
Yeah. If you can get caught in that as well. Any other comments, questions on very false witness? Comments, questions?
It should be called in class. Just tell
False swearing. False has already been defined multiple times. But to swear is to make a solemn statement, appealing to God or other sacred being or object. This goes along with in the courthouse. When you're getting put on the stand, you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. So when you go up there and you make that statement, you swear to tell the truth and you don't, it's considered false swearing. You're lying after you swore to tell the truth. It goes on and it says to take an oath, to promise solemnly vow, to testify under oath. Another word for false swearing is perjury, which is considered to be a serious crime. For example, like I brought up earlier, Bill Clinton, he was lying under oath, where he was practicing a false swearing, according to the pulpit commentary at Rome, and one who bore false witness in court was hurled headlong from the Tarpeian rock in Egypt. The perjurer was punished by assumption of the nose and ears.
Amputation.
No, I'm sorry, amputation of nose and ears. Yeah.
You could probably put most politicians on.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially the ones who refuse to swear on the Bible, right? So
Yeah.
Hebrews gives us, when God swore, there's no one higher, so he swore an oath to himself to uphold, right? So it tells us where that oath is. When we swear, that's where that oath is placed upon God, right? So,
Should we really be doing that though, putting our hand on the Bible in a court setting? As far as, because, the Bible tells us, let your yes be yes and your no be no.
yeah.
And I kind of have a little bit of a problem with that.
Yeah, but I mean, God is the higher authority.
Well,
If
yeah,
you're gonna
absolutely.
swear, you're gonna
And-
swear, to him, right? In that case of law. And we see that in the Bible where others have sworn oath to God as well, right? So, in many cases. So, let your yes be yes is talking about your honesty.
Well, I know, but I mean,
So-
that's what I mean, I wouldn't lie no matter what.
Right,
So why would I have to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
would
if you're
not.
going to the tenth of lying, I would say no.
But I'm glad to see the Bible is still in the courtroom.
All right, let's go to Leviticus Chapter 6, 3 through 5. Yeah, you want to read it? Leviticus Chapter 6, 3 through 5. And then hit 19, verse 12.
Okay. 6, 3 through 5. We found that which was lost in life concerning, and swear falsely in any of all these that a man doeth sinning therein. Then it shall be, because he hath sinned and is guilty, that he shall restore that which he took violently away, or the thing which he hath deceitfully gotten, or that which was delivered him to keep, or the lost thing which he found, or all that is about which he had sworn falsely, he shall even restore it in the principal, and add the fifth part more therefore, and give it unto him to whom it appeared in the day of his trespass offering. And then what was it, 19?
19 and verse 12.
Chapter 19, verse 12.
You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie to one another, and you shall not swear by my name falsely, nor shall ye profane the name of God, your God. I am the Lord.
So here especially, and God also, especially is opposed to false swearing. You can see there in chapter 3 and verse 5, that it says that he should restore what he took, and it says anything in which he swore falsely, he shall make restitution for it in full, and add to it 1/5 more. So you can see, you need to make it right. Yes.
Well, verse 12 just goes along with what Jim and what Laura asked or said about, and then Jim said that shows, because it says, we shall not swear by the name falsely.
Yeah.
So, putting your hand on the Bible and swearing to tell the truth, you're swearing that you're not doing it falsely. You're doing it to God. Or by God.
It seems that more dishonest people and more often be deemed necessary to resort to swearing in general. However, some of us long for those times when a man's word is his bond. A time when he believes what a person said simply because he said it, not because he swore.
And that goes to what we're saying, that's let our yes be yes and our no be no, right? So, but God has established authorities, right? And those authorities require us to swear an oath upon truth, and that oath is based on God, right? So.
Any other final comments, questions?
Be very careful how we speak, right?
Yep.
Always tell the truth. All right, thank you guys.